What is going on, good people? I am Philip.
And I'm Carrie.
And you are tuned in to another episode of Relatively Unknown. Listen, this show is all about relatively unknown people who are doing awesome and amazing things. Today, we got a lot planned for you as we do have a special guest mastermind today. And listen, when I tell you, it is going to be amazing, and there are so many gems and nuggets inside of that thing. Look, you are going to want to go ahead and, get your pen and pencil out, baby.
Okay, well, you got us all, tantalized now, and, you're just going to leave us right there.
Well,
you're not going to really tell us.
It's kind of like a soap opera.
You got to wait till the end.
You got to wait till the end so that you can kind of get the things that you need. You know what I'm saying? Mm-hmm. But listen, before we move on anymore, I got to, look at this fine specimen of a woman over here and just, how are you doing today, girly girl? Woman of the hour, my fine specimen of unbelievableness. Why you looking at me crazy?
I'm well. How are you?
I'm doing quite well. How is your week going?
It's been busy, but it's been good.
Well, that's what I'm talking about.
I hope yours has been a good week too.
Week has been good. Got a lot going on, obviously. Didn't have any classes this week, but I got a lot of behind the scenes stuff that I got going on, mm-hmm. and that's been keeping me super, super busy.
And even more important, we had a child who celebrated a birthday this week.
Yeah.
So it was Zoe's born day on Thursday. So yeah, a little 16-ish.
And the crazy thing about Zoe's birthday is not only is she 16, but my brother also has a daughter who was born on the same exact. What was in the water on
Well, it was a different year, but that same day.
Yeah, different year, but something's good about that time of year.
And Zoe's friend, her boyfriend, I think it's official now, so I don't think I'm out of line for saying that.
Boyfriend?
Yeah, she has a boyfriend. It's his birthday too, so the three of them share the same birthday.
It's a boyfriend thing now?
Yeah, it was just like friends, and then it was strange. But now they're boyfriend and girlfriend.
Somebody pray for me because I don't.
That was like 2 weeks ago, official. So you're a little bit behind.
I'm a little behind the times. I'm gonna have a conversation with that young man, especially now that it's official. There's a lot of stuff actually going on inside of the news right now, hon. One of the big things that I know has been going on is, this whole thing in Memphis with the police and the gentleman who was killed and whatnot. And, here we go again. You know what I'm saying? It seems like, we can't really get away from that issue, and it seems like as soon as things start to die down, boom, here we go again. And let me just go ahead and say my condolences to the family first of all, because you never want to see that happen. You never want to see that in the news,
no matter how that happens.
Absolutely. So I would love to know, just from your perspective, because I know you are former law enforcement. Mm-hmm. What goes through your mind when you continue to hear about things like that?
Yeah, well, in all honesty, with this particular situation, I've really intentionally not really connected. Mm-hmm. So not really in the know as far as the details go. Yeah. And I did that on purpose. But you never want to hear about that. I've heard some bits and pieces that perhaps one of the officers' wife may have been romantically involved, entangled. You went.
There was an entanglement.
You went Will Smith on us.
Yes.
Some Will and Jada on us. So, so the inappropriate use of power and authority in that situation, perhaps, obviously, very much carried away. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. It's very disheartening.
Yeah.
Because I know and believe that people don't get into that line of work for this to ever be the outcome.
Right.
That's not ever the intent.
Right.
The whole idea of protecting and serving.
Yeah.
is, the driver.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So it's very unfortunate, and it's really, as former law enforcement, it's just really not palatable for me, and I think that's why I've just kind of stayed away from the details.
Right.
Because it is painful, and when I got out of law enforcement, there was a lot of conflict at that time, and then that was right before the unfortunate incident with George Floyd.
Right.
So it's just difficult.
Yeah, it's so difficult, and you said something that I think is critical, and that we really kind of need to lean into. People don't get into that line of work for that to be the outcome, and I would go out on a limb and say, the large majority of people. I'm not going to say everybody, because we can't speak in absolutes, but I don't believe the large majority of people get into that line of work for that to be the outcome.
Yeah, I think there's a common misconception or misperception that people who get in law enforcement have an issue with wanting to be, in power. But having been on the HR side and the hiring process and just the vetting process, at least my agency, I can't speak for every.
That's right.
Like you said.
That's right. You can't speak in totality. Right.
Work really hard to weed those people out who may have character flaws that may lead towards the abuse of authority.
Right.
You can't always do it. You can't always weed them all out, but there is great efforts.
Right.
As much as, during the time that I was there, we were down double-digit officers.
Wow.
Within the agency, but that didn't mean that we just went out and hired everybody that applied.
Right.
We still put everybody through the same process, which is, it's a lot of things, you know. It's interviews and testing, lie detector, probing into your background.
Yeah.
So you're investigated at great length to ensure public safety from the beginning.
Right.
Right. Because when you're put in those types of situation that law enforcement are going to face, and you have stress and strain on you, whatever's in you,
it's going to come out.
Is going to come out.
Yeah.
When a grape gets crushed, whatever on the inside is going to come out.
That's right.
So, your character,
it's a big deal,
will either make you or break you.
Yeah. Yeah. So let me ask you, just as we talk about, because you said you're in the HR process, you kind of seen how your agency kind of brought people in, and you all did an amazing job in how you all brought people in, and making certain that you had good solid people in the job. Because here's the interesting thing, as a black male, as an African American male, I understand sometimes the challenges and issues that we, and I'm just going to speak in general from a cultural perspective, have had with law enforcement. And I'm just going to be honest, many times it's not good. But the interesting thing for me, I know when you got into law enforcement, and the people that I met who were your colleagues, they were all just super good people from my perspective. I don't necessarily remember meeting one of the people that you work with who were quote unquote bad people. You know what I'm saying? Who like, when I met them, I was like, I don't know about that one. Like literally, we communicated, we talked, so on and so forth. We had a good time. Like they were genuinely good people. And even when I see them today, they're genuinely good people, and I get it. I understand that, that doesn't, being a good person does not preclude anybody from being in a situation, but I'm of the belief that most people, when they wake up, they truly do wake up and say, you know what, today I'm going to have an amazing day. I want to have a productive day. And after I have this productive day, guess what? I'm going to try to go home, be with my family.
I want to go home. I want to go home safe.
Exactly. Yeah. Exactly. You know, they're not saying, hey, you know, what can we do to cause, you know, to cause
I'm not
people
trying to go kick tail today or anything like that, you know. But I think sometimes in the moment, again, it's about character.
Yeah.
In the moment, in the heat of the moment, when your buttons are pushed.
Yeah.
And you're already scrutinized.
Yeah.
And what a lot of people don't realize is there's more scrutiny sometimes on the inside than there even comes from the public eye.
Yeah.
So, you know, I would always feel very supported when I went into the community and I was wearing uniform. You know, people would thank me and things of that nature. But the culture on the inside, you know, there's a lot of tension.
Yeah.
Because you're clamoring over each other to try to get promotions, and you're competing against one another, and you're testing and you know, to be the top dog, to acquire the next rank.
Right.
And so sometimes there is tension or distension within the ranks, if you will.
That's interesting. That's interesting.
So you're getting the pressure from, you know, both sides.
Yeah.
Both sides. And it makes it it's heavy. It's very heavy. And again, so if there's a crack in your foundation, under the weight of all that heaviness, internal, external.
Yeah.
And then let's not forget about the pressures of at home. They're not making, you know, $1 trillion bucks, and they're working crazy hours and multiple jobs just to make ends meet, etc. Weird shifts.
Yeah.
Dealing with trauma, seeing things that people, human beings, shouldn't see on a regular basis. So you can imagine, like, if there's cracks in that foundation, it's gonna break.
Yeah.
At some point in time, and that's why I had a really good training where they were talking about the reason why they do 4-year stints within the military, and that's because of the traumatic experiences that you can have. Okay. And the pressure that it places on the human psyche. And basically, they have done research enough to know that after 4 years, that's about what you can have before you need to have that period of rest, rejuvenation, counseling, you know, healing to take place. Right. But when we look at our law enforcement, although, you know, it's apples and oranges.
I understand.
But there's still some similarities in what you're experiencing and the pressures that you face.
Right.
Ask yourself what's stopping you. Well, listen, before you flip off this page, I got the answer for you. It's you. No, seriously, it's you. The thing that stops you and so many others is limiting beliefs. I've heard it said before, the things that you believe, you become. So what's a limiting belief? I'm glad you asked. A limiting belief is a state of mind or belief about yourself that restricts you in some way. It's kind of like making a false accusation against yourself and believing it. But how do you eliminate limiting beliefs? It's pretty easy. Believe something different. Remember what I said earlier. Whatever you believe, you become. So what are you believing?
Between the military and law enforcement, we have people that for decades, that's what they do.
Yeah.
And they go into that hostile environment in office, out of office, day in and day out.
Yeah. So let me ask you this, because you said something that I thought was interesting, you know, as we're talking about, you know, day in and day out, this is what we do. You know, now, outside of law enforcement and any job, you know, many times we go into a place where it's like day in and day out, this is what we do. You know, this week we just had Groundhog Day. You know what I mean? So we do the same thing over and over and over and again. And it can get to the place where the thing that you do over and over again, that is what becomes your identity. You know, and I think sometimes that can be a good thing. Sometimes that may not necessarily be a good thing, is if that's how you identify who you are with. You know, so I am fill in the blank, right? I wonder, and I would love to hear your thoughts. I just wonder, do you think that thought process can carry into some of the things that we're seeing, even going back to that mental psyche and things like that, after the 4-year process that you're speaking about, could it be that, people like, I identify, this is who I am? Is that part of what's happening, you think, in the mindset of people? And again, I'm not just talking about law enforcement, I'm talking about in general, right?
Yeah, I mean, I think a lot of times we do have a tendency to become whatever it is that we do.
Yeah.
But, going back to your comment about Groundhog Day and doing the same thing day after day, the difference between, the office and the CEO is most people aren't making life or death split decisions.
That's good. Yeah.
Most people are not making decisions that potentially can impact someone else's life greatly. And, taking that into consideration, the weight of that too. Like, when you put criminal charges on someone, how the whole snowball effect of what that can look like.
Yeah.
So just that additional pressure, and I do think that there's a lot of training and becoming to be put in that place and that role, and you do become more vigilant or hyper vigilant than the average person because your role is to protect and serve, and it's very hard to take that hat off.
Right.
In fact, I can recall a time when one of the children said to me, we're not inmates.
Wow.
Because the first part of my work at the sheriff's office was working in the jail.
Yeah, you're a jail officer. Yep. Yep.
And so just becoming very systematic, regimented, giving direct commands, those sorts of things that you're trained to do.
Yeah.
You can fall back into that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. For you, how even after hearing a comment like that from our children, how did that play in your mental psyche? Like, was it like a wake up, or like where were you at in that process?
Yeah. I mean, I was like, oh man, like I never want my kids to feel like, I'm treating them as if they're imprisoned.
Right.
Or that they don't have freedom or choices.
Right.
And I didn't want to be that. That doesn't reflect the nurturing, teacher's loving spirit that a parent needs to have.
Right.
I just didn't want to be there giving direct commands for people to do this, do that.
Right.
So it was very much a wake up call for me.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
And thinking about that, I can only imagine, other people in situations like that, because what you said, most people don't have jobs that are life and death. You know what I mean?
Not even,
so,
or just making you're changing the trajectory
life.
of their life.
Absolutely.
Now, you don't decide whether they're guilty or not, but you do have to apply to the law to their behaviors.
Absolutely.
And then the rest of it is up to a jury of their peers, and a judge to decide, and the criminal justice system, that, by the way, is very skewed.
Right.
To make
right.
That's a different
That's
topic,
a different topic.
for another time.
Right.
To make the decision, but you still know that you get that ball rolling.
Yeah.
You know, and you got to be on point. And we're human beings, but we are expected to be infallible.
Yeah. Yeah.
And, you've got the pressures from the agency who expects the same thing.
Right.
Because you're representing not only your agency, but you're representing your community, and you're representing every man and woman who wears a badge.
Yeah. Yeah.
Across the globe. And it's just, it can consume you.
Yeah. And that's what I'm hearing from you. It can consume you.
It can if you allow it.
And if you, especially if you don't have places of respite where you can kind of take a step out, decompress, have those Selah moments or what have you, I can only imagine.
If you don't know how to do that in a healthy manner, you don't have a healthy outlet to do it. Or maybe you work so much just to make ends meet, you don't have the leisure of time.
Yeah. Well, especially going back to what you said, if you're having to work additional jobs or
side jobs, man. That's where
and
the
things
money
like
was
that.
at.
You know what I mean? That
people
part
don't realize that.
Yeah.
Like, I might work a 12-hour shift,
but then you go work another side job.
And then I go pick up a side job.
Woo.
Now I have to. Most agencies have policies And, if you're curious, you can always inquire with your local agencies to see what that is. Where you can't work a side job, you can only work so many hours consecutively.
Right.
Or you're not fit. They don't consider you fit to work. So there are a lot of safety measures, policies in place to keep burnout from happening.
Yeah.
But again, just thinking about having to make life and death decisions constantly in a moment.
Yeah.
Having to make decisions that change the trajectory of their lives.
Right.
Seeing traumatic events.
Yeah.
Death, accidents, suicides,
It's a big deal.
It's just a lot. It really is.
Yeah.
And so there are policies in place that are supposed to help with that. But, then there's just real life. Things written on paper, they have the best of intents, but they don't always meet the need for every situation either.
Right. Family, what's going on? That is friends and family. That's you. Listen, I hope that you are enjoying today's episode of the podcast. And y'all, we got something amazing to share. We realized that we needed a space, a community for people to come together, to learn, to grow, to catapult into your destiny. Guess what? We got it. It's called The Runway, and you need to be there. It's an absolutely free community to you. So listen, if you feel stuck, if you know that there's more, if you have something on the inside that you want to contribute to other people, this is a community for you. Do me a favor right now. Go to the link in the bio called The Runway. Go ahead, click on that link inside of the bio. Once you click on that link, it'll take you to the runway. Join today. It's absolutely free to you.
Right. Can't cover the whole gamut.
Right. It's interesting that we're kind of going down this path because, one of the things that we want to talk about in this episode is just the power of community.
Yeah.
It's interesting that, we believe that you're not created to do things in isolation.
Yeah.
We believe that, something happens together when you can collectively come together. Our faith says, especially if we go back and we read inside of our word, it says, we were not created to be alone. And a lot of times we equate that to marriage. But I believe, and I know you do also, that it's so much more than just marriage. Being alone in isolation, that's not a good thing. We've heard the statement before, an idle mind is the enemy's playground, or even going back into incarceration. One of the most heinous things you can do is put somebody in solitary confinement, right?
Yeah,
people lose their
mind completely decompensates, and they do lose their mind. And I've I've seen it happen, that a person is just a completely different person after having that experience, whether for discipline or for their safety. Sometimes it's for their own safety because they've been threatened. When you have gangs and inter-gang wars and those sorts of things. But, that was, it's a great segue.
Yeah.
Really didn't know it was going to happen this way. But to be honest with you, it was the connection and the camaraderie, the team atmosphere that really drew me and kept me with law enforcement. That was very appealing to me, was the connection. And you're connected for the mission and the overall goal to do it together, but you're also connected in, sometimes it's just the unspoken shared traumatic experience.
Right.
And the importance of the connectivity there, for another brother or sister wearing the badge to be able to keep you in check, you know, whether you're in the midst of having personal issues at home, or there's something going on at the job, or even in the throes of having to use force.
Right.
To be able to keep your teammate, your partner in check.
Right.
I've been in those situations where it's a group of individuals having to use force.
Right.
To bring an individual to compliance because they're going to hurt themselves or another.
Right.
And seeing people, just knowing them well enough to recognize that she's not in a good place or he's not in a good place. This is going to go too far.
Right.
And being able to like check them.
Right.
Because when you're by yourself,
yeah,
and just in general, when we're by ourselves, who is there to check us?
Right. Right. No, nobody.
And you're just turned over to your own thoughts, you
Right.
know, like taking it outside of a specific situation into just a general scenario.
Mm-hmm.
When we isolate ourselves, who's there to check our thoughts?
Right. Right.
Who's there to encourage, to motivate, like to give us the contact?
Yeah.
You know, personal touch, words, just having another human being to look at to affirm us.
Yeah, and it's so interesting because a lot of times I hear, even if we talk about faith, right? I hear people say things like, well, you know what? I can do this by myself. You know, I don't need to be in fellowship with other people. I can do this by myself. Or, you know, in the workplace, you know, I don't need a team. I can do this by myself. Or even in sports, you know, we have those people who are like, hey, I don't need the team. Just give me the doggone ball. I can do it by myself. And what I've seen though is people who have that mentality, they falter.
They do. And
it's almost like they're crushed by the weight of their own, I don't even know the word, but it's like
it's the crack in the foundation.
Yeah.
And they get sucked into it.
Yeah.
Life just crumbles. I mean, when you look at, if you believe in the creation story, the only reason that humanity even exists is because God wanted to be in relation. He wanted to be in fellowship and commune with another being created in his own image. He said, let us make man in our image.
Correct.
So not that God was lonely, but he saw the value in having a connection, having a team, having a posse, having, you know, another being to commune with.
Right.
And so, I mean, the whole essence of the whole fabric of our being,
the
whole reason for being is for community.
Yeah. Yeah. And, you know, it's interesting because, you know, one of the questions, I was actually having a conversation with somebody earlier, and I asked the question, I was like, who is in your circle? Like, who are the people who are inside of your circle? You know, I've heard it said before that we are the sum total of the circle of people that we keep with us, right? You know, to get more specific, they say if you take the 5 people that you spend the most time with, your life is the sum total of that.
Yeah, it's going to mirror that.
It's going to mirror that. And it's interesting because we really have to ask ourselves the question, who's around us?
Or like Mr. Rogers would say, who
are the people in your neighborhood?
That wasn't him.
Who
that
said
was Sesame Street, wasn't it?
I don't know, but I know the song, in your neighborhood, in your neighborhood. Who are the people in your neighborhood? They're the people that you meet
when you're walking down the street. They're the people that you meet each day.
See, I didn't know all that, but
I think that's what it is. But, you know, like, who are those people? That's really critical. I know my mom would always, like, tell me, you know, you are the company that you keep.
Yeah.
You know, even just hanging around or being in someone's presence, someone who isn't maybe of great character can make people think, can leave an impression on other people.
I would agree with
other
that.
people's minds. And if you have something you want to achieve, you need to surround yourself with people who are or look like what you want to be or are where you want to go.
Yeah, I heard it said bad company corrupts good character. You know what I mean? So if you are not around the right people, they can corrupt you very quickly. I mean, we can be easily, you know, persuaded to do things that are not in our character. So we got to make sure that we have those people around us who are literally there to lift us up, to boost us up, to make certain that, you know, we're in the right place. You know, I know we have a friend group, and one of our friends the other day posted this picture of like our feet.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? Which was super, super awesome. You know what I'm saying? Because I didn't know that she was going to post that.
I didn't even know she took the picture.
I didn't either.
Because we were so into playing the game deeper. Where we just, you know, it's a question and we just talk about deep things in life. I had no idea.
I didn't know she took the picture. But, you know, the interesting thing, even in that, was we got a cool network of friends. We got a cool small group, you know, and I know like every week, you know, we're just, you know, connecting with them and coming into fellowship. And the interesting thing is, and I think you said this, you would never in a million years go, even if we had a lineup and said, hey, who is their friend group?
Friends together. Yeah.
You would never put
draw the
that
line
friend
to
group
those
together.
who go together. Yeah.
You know what I mean?
It wouldn't. And I think that's really like the beauty and the essence of it, is that they are different, because that's one of the things we value.
Absolutely.
Is
Absolutely.
differentness.
Yeah.
But also the value added in that.
Yes.
And I think that, you know, you and I are those kind of people where we want folks who are going to like challenge us.
Yeah.
And that's, you know, that's the beautiful thing about community. If you're really in it, it challenges you. So community helps you to grow.
Yeah.
And it also helps you to stay grounded.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know, in your beliefs.
Yeah.
And just be, you know, being present, not being, you know, off somewhere, just lost in your own mind.
Well, you know, it's so interesting because I know personally when I've been around people who thought like me, looked like me, sounded like me, I mean,
you're not really going to grow anywhere, are you?
I wasn't growing at all because all I saw was me. However, it's so interesting because in this friend group, everybody's so different, you know? And one of the things that it's helped me to learn about myself, it's helped me to learn what I really believe and what I really stand on.
Because, man, we have some differing beliefs.
We do.
And, you know, there's some times where there's conversations where, you know, I've really had to be like, you know, just challenge my beliefs.
Yeah, yeah. I can say the same thing. I mean, it's like even, you know, last week we're having a question, you know, around faith. And I know some of them don't necessarily believe what I believe. But you know, the interesting thing that I've realized is you don't necessarily have to believe what I believe for me to respect you and you to respect me.
Absolutely.
Now, the cool thing about that is I can still, though, stand on my belief and even share what I believe.
You're my friend.
Right.
And you've put yourself in this space and community and say, I'm open to that.
Right.
You know, and I know some feedback that I got was, you know, you're a reflection of what a Christian should be.
Wow.
And like literally, it wasn't exactly that wording. It was a little bit deeper than that, but it made me teary because that's what I want to be. I don't want to be the stereotypical reflection of the hypocritical church or the hypocritical Christian.
Right.
But to know that someone that I care about sees me walking in a way that I want to be seen.
Yes.
You know?
Yes.
And the way that I try to display my faith.
Yeah.
That was really, really powerful.
Yeah.
But, you know, connecting with people with that level of differentness, it's just so much beauty.
There is.
To that. And I feel like my life is so much fuller.
Yeah.
You know, and I talk to people all the time who isolate because of their mental illness, especially depression, or, you know, people who are in life circumstances who, even though there may be someone or several someones living in the home, but yet they're surrounded by people, but they're still all alone. And you have to be really intentional about connecting because it doesn't just happen. No. Yeah. So if you're one of those people who are saying, I don't have any friends, like what are you really doing? Or I don't have a community, I don't have a tribe. What are you doing to ensure that you have that? Because again, going back, it's the essence of our being is to be in relationship. It's our only reason for being was to be in relationship.
Yeah. And I love what you said, you know, what are you really doing to find that connection? Because there's connection everywhere. I mean, again, you know, the place we hang out, you know, during the weekends, many times it's so eclectic. There are so many different everything there. You know what I'm saying?
If I had a picture of heaven, I would say
that's probably it. You know what I'm saying?
All these different people.
That's probably it. All the different people just all in one place together, enjoying each other's company, celebrating each other, wanting to see each other win. And ultimately, I do believe that's what God wants, right? That's the picture that he wants. He wants to see all of his children, yellow, brown, green, and white. There.
You ever seen a green person?
I don't
If you did,
know,
they probably
but
did.
something like that. Whatever. He wants all the people in the world together. He loves the little children of the world.
We'll talk later.
Okay, we'll talk later. But my point though, seriously though, is that's the power of connection. You know, I don't always have to be right. You know what I mean?
It is the power of connection. But I also don't think that God wants us not to challenge each other.
Oh yeah, I agree with that.
And I think we get in these circles where we think we have community. But nobody challenges anybody. And we can see a wrongdoing.
And you let it ride.
And we let it ride because we wear the same uniform. We go to the same establishment.
Yeah.
So we let it ride. They're one of ours, so to speak.
Right.
But we're supposed to be there for each other and for their growth and their prosperity.
Right.
And I think you're doing a disservice if you're in community
and
you don't ever have conflict. Because conflict is not...
That's not a bad thing.
No, I tell people all the time, the only way a seed can grow is to put it in the dirt. It needs some conflict. It's not going to grow in that little paper bag that comes in.
That's right.
That's why they put it in there.
That's right.
So our differing opinions or just discussing conversation, things of that nature, that's like the nourishment that's found in the soil.
Yeah. Yeah.
And we have to put soil on it. So we got to have a little conflict, and then we have to put water.
Absolutely.
And nurture it. So that things can grow, so that people can grow.
Well, again, it's the conflict that helps keep you grounded. Because in the conflict, I know like
and humble.
Yeah. Well, conflict and humble. I like both of those, but that's where I'm really starting to process and think. You know what I'm saying? And be able to say, okay, I kind of see where this is going, or I see what I really believe, or I see where I really am. You know, you don't recognize that in places where there's no conflict.
And how can you know what you really believe if no one has
nobody
ever
ever challenged you? Yeah.
Like, you know, you're just gonna take that because somebody said believe that,
right?
As opposed to like really having a philosophical, intellectual, spiritual, all the above conversation.
Yep.
In depth with someone who may not see it exactly the way you do.
Right.
And then if you walk away from there still convinced, that's beautiful and powerful.
And I agree with you. And that's why we continue to say, well, that's kind of what heaven is supposed to look like. You know what I mean? All of us together. You know what I'm saying? Because at the end of the day, when we can all get to the same place and love each other in spite of each other, that's really a beautiful thing. That's really a beautiful thing. You know, so the question we want to really pose for you all today is, what does your community look like? Who are the people who are around you? Who are those 5 people that, you know, we said earlier, if you add up the sum of the 5 people that you're around, that equals your life? Who are those people who you're around? You know, we want to know that.
We literally were sitting at the table with 5 other people. You realize that, right?
I didn't, but until you said that.
I mean, because we're not the same person.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, we are kind of like one, but...
We are one, but we're not the same person.
But we're not the same person. We need to talk about that too.
I mean, because even in marriage, you have to embrace the differentness.
Absolutely.
Because it's beautiful, you know.
Absolutely. 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 So that was good.
Yeah, that was really good.
That was deep.
Very deep. Yeah. You know, every person really yearns for that connection and community.
Yeah.
It's an absolute necessity for well-being.
Yeah.
And, you know, it is scientifically connected to our physical well-being, mental well-being, spiritual well-being. It all boils down. Everything
comes down to connection.
Really comes down to relationship. Yeah.
You know, it's interesting. I know even for myself, I didn't realize how much I needed connection like that. You know what I'm saying? Because I know you were in the crew hanging out before I even joined, but now like I look forward to being, even if we don't do anything, like just
a lot of times we don't. We just kind of sit around and talk. Like, you know, we don't have a specific plan. We just want to be in each other's presence, and that's really cool. You know, part of me is a little sad that it took me 46 years to get in that place, and you know, the other sad part of it is I've been in church a lot of those 46 years.
Yeah.
And honestly, like, I've found community or connection with a few people, but never like really a group of people on that level.
Right.
And it just happened so organically.
Yeah.
You know, and like I said, I'm overjoyed that I have it. But I'm also like, man, where has this been my whole life? Like, you know, I needed this.
Yeah.
So.
Well, the beautiful thing is, although you found it at 46, you got plenty of time.
Oh yeah.
To enjoy it. You know what I'm saying? You got plenty of time to enjoy it.
Mm-hmm. I got, you know, probably another 60 plus years. So yeah, they're gonna have to put up with me.
That's what I'm talking about.
Mm-hmm. And some of them are young, so they might, you know,
they're gonna be around for a while too,
taking care of us.
True indeed. True indeed.
They didn't sign up for all that, right?
I mean, this has been like a really, really engaging session, you know, and honestly, I'm loving when we can just come on here and just, you know, do the little podcast. I don't know about y'all, but this is kind of therapeutic. This is kind of like a date night for us too.
Yeah, I mean, this is what we do. So we're just letting you all into our space.
Yeah.
The kind of conversation and connection that we have. And we hope that this conversation will encourage you to have the connection or seek meaningful connection that you need in your life. And I guarantee that you'll feel better in every aspect of your being when you intentionally make those connections. So, but this next segment, y'all, what do I always say?
Buckle up.
Buckle up. Go from the right because you ain't driving.
Yeah, you got to bring it from the right.
Down.
Buckle up. Buckle on up.
Here we go, y'all.
Get ready, y'all. Every week, we sit down with authors, creatives, entrepreneurs, simply people you need to know to have what we call a guest mastermind. Now, during these guest masterminds, you are going to hear some truly remarkable stories from some really, really awesome people. We talk about how they got to where they are, and we'll learn some tips, some tools, some strategies that we can all apply to help us to live our best lives. Now, today's guest, well, she has a pretty remarkable story. Latasha Martin is the CEO and founder of Vonswy Solutions, a company with a mission to partner with clients to create transformational, organizational, and human capital strategies to provide a framework for structured business growth. Latasha has over 20 years of experience across several different platforms. Anything from leadership development to strategic planning, career navigation, learning and performance. Listen, Latasha has done it all. In addition to that, Vonswy has been named as one of the fastest growing businesses by Business First magazine and Women's Business of the Month by KeyBank. Latasha has done many amazing things, but one thing she loves doing is helping relatively amazing people just like you to get clarity. So sit back, take a look at our interview with our friend, Latasha Martin. So before we even jump into anything, how would you introduce yourself? Just like introduce yourself for the people here.
Okay, no problem. My name is Latasha Martin, and I would say that I am a coach that helps people who are solopreneurs or you are a worker. And I'm not going to call you a side hustler. I'm going to say maybe you're an entrepreneur and your desire is to do business with businesses that have more than 50 employees and work a profitable business, whether it's as a solopreneur or as a, we'll say a dualpreneur. That's what we'll call it. So that's what I do is I help people that way by helping them have that strong foundation.
And you know, one thing, Latasha, that, you know, I know we've talked before, but one of the things that we've talked about is how there are a lot of people out there who are now getting into this entrepreneurial space. They're becoming coaches, they're becoming consultants, and let's just keep it real. Sometimes they have never done what they say that they have done. However, you have. Share with the people just a little bit about your background, because I know many people may not even know the extensive background that you have. So share with the people your background.
Okay, well, no problem. Well, what I like to share with people is that this is my my second time being in business full time for myself. So I'm on the round of doing it for 7.5 years. And the reason that it's different this time is within those 7.5 years, year after year, even through the things that have happened, I've been running a profitable business. And in that space, I've worked with companies that were $80 billion companies down to a startup solopreneur that's just got a concept and an idea. But the process that I've used with these companies, whether they've been, again, these multi-billion dollar companies, and I can drop names and receipts. Some of the organizations I've worked with is General Motors, Sodexo, the University at Buffalo. Those are some of the larger organizations that I've worked with, down to medium-sized manufacturing companies, like it was formerly Jiffy Tite, now it's Otakar. Organizations that are nonprofit organizations, but the nonprofit organizations that I've worked with have been small organizations that have been doing big things, or larger nonprofit organizations that have multi-million-dollar budgets. And I share that with you because what I've recognized working with all of these different organizations is the framework and the blueprint. Whether I'm a solopreneur, right now I have a couple of part-time employees, or I've had times where I've had 3 full-time employees, including myself. With that process, it's just being clear about what kind of business do you want to run? What kind of customers do you enjoy working with? And then what is a smart way where you have win-win solutions for both you and your customers? So that's a little bit about my background.
So one of the things that I'm hearing is you do this thing for real, right? You're not an imposter. You do this for real. You work with the big businesses. You're not just that person out there, as my friend would say. I got a friend, his name is Carl, and everybody he sees on TV or everybody he sees on the internet, he's like, scam, they're a scammer. But you are not that. You do this thing for real. And I just want to be clear with that. What is your degree in? Because I know you got a degree. What's your degree in?
So my first degree is an engineer. So I worked as an engineer for a manufacturing company, and this is why we
hold on. An engineer, you're a real engineer, like a for real engineer,
like a for real. Went to engineering school. And I did that for 7 years working for General Motors. And this is why I say we don't burn bridges and we have strong LinkedIn profiles, because when I left my job the last time, they reached out to me, and I left there in 2002. And they reached out to me as one of my first customers when they saw me doing stuff on my own. So that was one of my contracts when I went on my own this time. My second degree is in organizational development and communications. And I did that so that I could be effective when it came to people strategies. So I actually have the benefit of using both sides of my brain. But in addition to that, because I'm a process nerd, I'm also a Lean Six Sigma Black Belt. And then I'm certified in some behavioral assessments like DISC and MBTI, Change Style Indicator. Those are some of the things, the tools that I use when I'm working with my clients. And so I'm not just coming up with these ambiguous concepts. I use real business principles and processes, and I am actually certified in all the things that I actually work with my clients in. I'm not just kind of. And I do want to say a sidebar here. When I went into business the first time on my own, I didn't have those credentials. And so I felt bad. And I really feel like some of the people that are out in this space and in these streets, they're where I was 20 years ago. And what I mean by that is I was familiar with DISC, but I wasn't certified and I wasn't an authorized partner where I could sell that to clients. So I would have to like makeshift things, but I couldn't offer premium prices because if I was being real honest, I was almost selling counterfeit solutions, meaning that I wasn't certified and I wasn't, when you Google and you go into those systems and say, who's a local vendor, my company didn't pop up. And this time in my process in that, when I went back into the workforce, I recognized there were some deficiencies and gaps. And so my last employer actually paid for many of the certifications that I could use once I left. So if I
That's
was
what's up.
working with someone who had a job, I would say, how do you not just say that they're benefiting my education, but what skills and competencies and certifications and licenses can I get where they're not on my dime? I'm not doing it for manipulative reasons. I did it so I could help that organization. But then when I left that organization, I could use those skills and transfer them out now in a business world. So now as a business owner, I'm not a fraud and a counterfeit. I'm the real deal.
I love it. And you definitely are the real deal. I know you're the real deal because, again, I will just say this to the audience. She's not just a friend, you know what I mean? Like I actually use her services, and she has been one of my personal coaches to help take me from, you know, a snotty nosed nobody to where I didn't even know what I was doing, to where I'm super clear in vision and purpose and in direction now. And I think that's the big thing. And that's the one thing that I personally believe separates those people who are getting it and those people who are struggling, right? It's the clarity piece. So listen, we're gonna come back to this because I know you're gonna drop some bars and drop some nuggets for our family. But you know, one of the things that Carrie and I have been talking about on the Relatively Unknown podcast is community and the importance of having and surrounding yourself with the right people, with the right type of people. I want to get your thoughts on that. Like, can you do this on an island by yourself, or is it important to have a community of people who will help you and support you? Like, what are your thoughts on that?
Well, the research supports that you are the sum average of the 5 people that you spend the most time with. And so if you don't have business buddies, community, and accountability, then that means you're pressing into family and friends. And unfortunately, for most of us, our family and friends are not where we aspire to be. So unless you have a rich uncle, and even if you do, or a rich aunt, even if you have them, they're probably in a different space and place than where you are. So I would say that successful entrepreneurs, especially those solopreneurs or those freelance or in this free gig economy, I would say you want to invest in that community and accountability. And I know that you have a great community that I am a part of, but I think that's critical for success, because as you're trying to figure it out, being an entrepreneur, it is hills and valleys, and it's probably more valleys than the hilltops, because you're either down there trying to figure some stuff out in the lab, and you're trying to pull your way up. And as soon as you get to a place where you either peak and think, I got it, something takes you back. And so having that community and accountability is kind of like your refuge to be who you really are, with no makeup, just keeping it 100 with one another, but really pushing people to be where they aspire to be.
Was it always that way for you? Did you always have a community, and if not, how do you get that community? How do you build it? What did you do?
I would say no. Especially when I was living life and I had a lot of responsibility. So I'm in a totally different season now as a wife and as a mother of adult children versus where I was when I started. When I started, I had a baby in belly, baby in hand, baby in a holder, right? Or at times it was like 2 babies walking. So I had a big responsibility with motherhood. I had a big responsibility with my husband. And when I was in business my first time, I was just drowning. Like right now, I can't even drink caffeinated things because I drank so much. I didn't realize, because I didn't grow up with entrepreneurs around me to know that the most successful had a tribe. I didn't even get that. Even in different parts of your life, I didn't realize that to be the best mom, you needed other moms to kind of pour into you to help you get to where you needed to go, or as a business owner. So no, I didn't have that. And I would say the way I recognized it was I went through a leadership program here in Buffalo. I went through 2 of them actually. And the second one that I went through, I want to say I wasn't qualified. I don't even know how I made it to the room, because these people were running or overseeing multi-million-dollar companies, right? So they'd be having conversations and I'd be like, I don't even know what you're talking about. I'm just trying to keep it at, $250,000. Like, that's me. I'm good right there. And so, but what the best thing in that program, and I just met with someone I went through it with, was meeting with people who were further along than me, but they still were right there with me, right? So it probably doesn't make sense, but they were further along than where I was, and it gave me an opportunity to have a different type of conversation. Once that sparked, I realized that, you know what, maybe I have that for business, but then I need other communities. So like for even being a wife, like I recognized, okay, I had a tribe and I didn't realize I had it. So it's a few women who have been married longer than I have. And I really press into them to say, I'm struggling with this wife issue and I can have it there. So I started to recognize and value community from that group with business, but then I didn't even realize that I had it in other places. So because it wasn't formalized, I had informal tribes and communities that I was in, and they've always been really small. But again, when I realized that business one, I realized I can be in bigger communities and then just find my little subcategories. So for me, it started being, well, what season am I in, and where are the deficits, or where are places where I can contribute as well as win for myself.
Yeah.
And that didn't happen until, I want to say, the last couple of years, because up until that point, I was always an outlier. I was in business what most people strive to in the groups that I was in, and that wasn't helping me get to the next level. It wasn't until I started hanging out with people who were further along that helped me to understand that when you're in community, it needs to be a mixture of some that are better, like further on, and then some who are not. So then that way you feel like you're giving and taking, not just in a place where you're giving or just receiving.
That's good. You know, one of the things you said earlier, you said you are the sum total of the people that you surround yourself with, right? And now you're talking about kind of being in this, what I would refer to as more of a push-up, pull-up type community, where there's some people in front of you and they're kind of pulling you up while you're literally pulling some other people up. But that creates this reciprocal environment to where you feel valued, and feeling valued in your place is that's a huge thing, you know, to know that I may not be where I want to be, but you know what? But I'm valued in the place that I am. That's a huge thing. So thinking about what you do just from a business perspective, and I know with Relatively Unknown, you know, our target group, the people who we speak to, they're really, really awesome people. They're up and coming, and they're really trying to make that transition from, you know, where they are to where they can catapult into where they see themselves from a vision standpoint. If you could give that person, you know, some words of wisdom or some things that they need to just keep an eye out for, what would you tell that person, that up and coming person?
Yeah, what I would tell them is definitely make sure that you financially invest in something that can help you be better. And let me tell you why I say that. Because if you don't have real skin in the game, meaning your pocketbook, you're only going to go so far, because there's all these wish-wash groups, but there's no true accountability. And I mean, when I say invest in that, it should be a painful investment, so that you have a mindset to say, like, this is important to me. Because I think there's like some kind of analogy or something that says, if you want to see what's important to somebody, look at their checkbook. And I think that's one thing, invest in that accountability. The second thing I would say is, and I know this sounds very cliche, but focus on your stuff. Like, even when you're in these groups, recognize that your season is different than somebody else's season. So stay in your space and make your celebrations that are authentic celebrations for you. Acknowledge that. Like, don't poo-poo and downplay like what success looks like for you today, right? So today, me and my son did a class together. To some people, it might not have been a big deal, but for him, that was his first paid gig. We're going to celebrate that. And to somebody else, because it wasn't a $8,000 check, it might have been smaller than that. To him, I don't care if it was $2.55. It was a paid opportunity, which was different. Like, you have now hit the point that some people don't get to for years in their business. So I would say the one thing is invest in that support. Number two, celebrate who you are. And then number three, remain eager to learn and be curious. Never get to the place where you feel like I'm accomplished and I don't need to learn anything. You can learn something from anybody and everybody if you're open to just say, I'm going into today with anticipation to be open and to learn. And then the last piece is that when I say stay humble, it's a place of gratitude and gratefulness. Don't take for granted that anything. Just be grateful. Just be in a space of gratefulness. So those were the four things that I would say. Pay for that connection. Number two, make sure that you, again, are coachable and learning. And then number 3, you see, I'm going to lose my train of thought along. I've been talking all day. Celebrate and then stay in your lane. So those are the 4 things that I would say are really critical to like the progression of what it is that you're trying to do.
You know, there are a lot of people, especially, you know, family people, because again, family is extremely important too. I know it's important to you. It's important to us as well. How do you balance? You know, I know you're a momager with your son, and how do you balance that? You know, being a momager, being a woman entrepreneur in business, being a wife. Like how do you find time to do all that?
I don't think balance is a real thing. I think it's intentions and prioritization. And so one of the exercises that I use with my clients is I say, you know, what does your value ladder look like? And then what season are you in? And then for me, I just did a live on this last night. I deleted it because it was just like, okay, off brand. But I literally say that anything that's important to you, A, you invested in it, and 2, it makes it to your calendar as a priority. So I don't think that it is about a thing of balance. I think it's intention, and it's focusing on the things that are important. So that's the way that I would suggest that.
I love it. And I know you got to go, but listen, how can our people get in contact with you? Because I know you got some valuable nuggets. I know you got some courses. Like you got something coming up. So how can our people get in contact with you?
See, this is the thing. And I know I'm like the worst interviewee when I say that. There are many ways to get in touch with me, but this is what I would say. Since I'm connected to your community, they can get connected to me if they connected to you. How about that? So what I would say is that you join the runway, and then you'll have access to me. That's the way I suggest it. I feel like
I need to do one of those. I need to do one of those.
That's the way I say it is. Because I honor the space where I'm at. So I would say to connect to me is to connect to you. That's what I would say. And honestly, that's the way it should be right there.
Well, listen, I will just reiterate that if you have not already joined the runway, please make sure you join the runway. It is an amazing community made just for you. It is what we call a 3-way community. I share, you share, we share. And when we all share, we can take off together. The link is in the bio, by the way. Just shameless plug. Thank you very much, Latasha Martin. I appreciate it. Last words. What would you say? Any last words that you want to share with the people?
My last word is be grateful, be blessed, and just be the best version of what you were created to be. That's what I would say.
And everybody, this is my friend Latasha Martin, Vonswy Solutions, the master, the business guru herself. This is her, y'all. I'm telling you what I know. If you need to know about business, you need to get yourself clear. You need to go see Latasha Martin, and you can find her through the runway, by the way. You can find her through the runway. Well, Latasha, we appreciate you coming in today. Thank you so much. Well, thanks for listening to the Relatively Unknown podcast. We hope that you have enjoyed this episode's conversation, as well as our guest mastermind and all the tips, tricks, and gems that have been laid down for you. If you want to see how these tips and tricks can be applied in the real world, I would just say consider joining us in the runway. It's a free community, but it can absolutely change your life. The link is in the description below. Now make sure you tune in next week because we have an absolutely crazy story to share during our guest mastermind. Next week, we'll share with you an entrepreneur who used his faith to absolutely explode his business. If you've ever felt stuck, I promise this is a segment you want to tune into. And if you enjoyed the segment and you want to help support the podcast, please share it with others. Post about it on your social media or leave a rating, a comment, or a review. And to catch all the latest from us, you can follow me on Instagram at @ThePhilipEdge. You can follow Carrie at CarrieEdge, or follow the podcast at Relatively Unknown. All links will be in the description below. And don't you forget, I share, you share, we share, and we can take off together. We'll see you next week.